Hey everybody, welcome to the next installment of Brian the Writer Reads Reapoke. We're on chapter 11 for those of you who did not see the rest of them. Go ahead and check them out. They are available on my YouTube site, and you can pull up the readings and you can read them and get caught up. If not, and you're new and you just want to check it out, great. Thank you for visiting me. So, without further ado, let's get into it and see how far we can go. Chapter 11, The Long Road to Reapoke. Having found nothing in the lake to indicate anything happened to Megan and her son, Mike and Bill continued toward Reapoke. Mike hated dragging Bill into this mess, but they should be safe enough if they stuck together. Bill, bred from hardy farm stock, was a formidable man. Spending a career as a merchant sailor, he knew how to handle himself. Mike, however, was incapable of fighting anyone. Though he had taken a good care of himself, and outside of a few karate classes as a boy, fighting wasn't his style. As they made the turn in the lake, the docks of Reapoke lay ominously in the distance. Scanning the surface of the water, he trained his binoculars on something that made his heart sink. In the middle of the lake, a red boat cushion bobbed aimlessly. It could have come from anywhere. A knot in the pit of his stomach told Mike a different story. "Looks like a cushion floating up there," Bill said. The older man's eyesight was still as good as ever. "Yeah," Mike said. He said a short prayer that it didn't belong to the resort. Using a gaffing hook to catch the cushion, it hung in the air, confirming Mike's suspicion. Property of the Hideaway Resort was emblazoned in yellow letters across the top. Under those words, written by hand in indelible marker, was the number 21, the same number as the boat Megan and Kyle had borrowed that morning. They made it at least this far. No other explanation fit. Circling the boat around, a few other disturbing items bobbed up and down. A bottle of suntan lotion, a half-empty bottle of water, and a bag of snacks floated together as if clinging to dear life. "Bill, I think we need to get closer to Reapoke." Bill frowned disapprovingly. "Not sure I like that idea." Mike knew Bill lived in the area since before Mike bought his half of the resort from a retiring former owner. Bill constantly warned people away from Reapoke, citing the rumors and innuendo surrounding the small town. Even as an adult, it shaped his opinion of the place. "Bill, I'm not going to tell you that you have to come with me, but I sure as hell don't want to go alone." The bow section of the hull hit something just below the surface of the water. A grating sound assaulted their ears as the boat moved forward. Mike grabbed one of the oars and pushed it under the surface to feel what lay beneath. "I can feel it, but it's a few feet down and I can't see what it is." "Bill, back us up a bit." Bill reversed the boat's engines and the hull scraped again on whatever it was. Without hesitation, Mike jumped into the cold waters of the lake, popping to the surface a few seconds later. "What the hell has gotten into you, Mike?" Bill stood from his captain's chair. "Give me a minute." Mike disappeared again, legs dangling in the air before disappearing below the waterline. A few moments later, he breached the surface again. "Bill, throw me a rope." Not questioning Mike's sudden irrational behavior, he threw one of the bow lines to his boss. Catching the rope, Mike descended again. It was a good 20 seconds before he surfaced. "Get me out of this water. I'm freezing my ass off." "Damn fool. You ought to know better than to jump in like that. You're going to freeze to death." Bill put a blanket around Mike after pulling him back on deck. "What in tarnation were you doing anyway?" "I found something, Bill. Something big and aluminum. I think it's a boat." "Let's attach the rope to the bow eye and pull it up." There are tons of junk in the bottom. There are tons of junk in the bottom of this lake. It could be just about anything. Who knows? You may have found the hood of someone's car or a piece of an old aluminum pier. Mike shook his head. "No way. This is the hull of a boat. I felt along its edge, and the fore section of the hull is sitting upright with the aft section in the bottom. I'm pretty sure we can get the thing up and have a look at it. The metal moved easily enough when I pulled on it." "Could be an old boat someone sank years ago," Bill offered as he pulled on the rope. A fishing boat going down in the waters of Lake Oleander would have made news on both sides of the lake, It had been years since anything like that had happened. A wave of panic hit Mike as the tip of the bow broke the surface. He couldn't see the registration numbers on the side of the boat. His gut spoke volumes on the subject. "Hold her there, Mike. I'll grab the gaffing hook." Grabbing the side of the boat with the long hooked pole typically used for fishing, Bill reeled in the side of the hull and rolled over the craft on its side. As soon as the sides of the boats met, Mike ran another rope along through the oar sockets and secured it. Mike scanned the bow. The boat belonged to the resort. More precisely, this was the boat Megan and Kyle left in. A chill ran up his spine as the number 21 crested the water's surface. The resort boats were indestructible under normal circumstances. This one had sunk. If this one had sunk, then something unexpected happened. As Bill worked feverishly to get the water out of the stricken boat, Mike examined the piers of Rehopoke. Maybe they made it over there. They could swim it, even in a storm like this. The water's pretty cold, though. They could have just as easily been swept somewhere else. Any time in the water would have made them hypothermic, Bill retorted. Mike hated the thought of Megan and Kyle stranded in that town. It was the most palatable outcome. That was the most palatable outcome, given the raft of acceptable alternatives. Still, even the slowest swimmer should have been able to cross the distance. "Bill, let's head into town," Mike said. Bill shook his head. "Are you sure that's such a good idea? I mean, I'll go in with you, as there's no way I'd let you go alone, but they haven't been missing that long. We should go back to the resort and call the police again. Going into town can be dangerous." Mike winced at the suggestion. "I know, and I have a bad feeling about all of this, but I have to do something. I won't force you to go, but I'd sure feel better if you did." Bill started the engine and edged the throttle forward, slowly dragging the waterlogged boat along with them. "Well, it'd give us the chance to bring the boat up out of the water. We'll need to get that home anyway. All right then, let's go. We'll take this slow and stay together." Dragging the boat made the progress slow, which gave Mike time to think about the situation. Tales he'd heard sounded like rumors to keep kids from going into town and starting trouble. Just rumors. However, enough circumstantial evidence existed to give him pause. As an adult, tales of monsters roaming the woods were shoved aside as childish fantasies. What couldn't be dismissed, however, were the very real instances of missing people. In some cases, Rehopoke was the last place the person was reported being seen, or in a couple of cases, persons. The lawyer in him couldn't let that strange coincidence just skulk away unnoticed. The town and local magistrate accepted the official findings of the people went missing in the mountains and were presumed dead. Victims all shared one startling commonality. They were mostly loners with no family or friends around to inquire about them. With no one asking questions, the authorities had no reason to check the validity of the official findings. Over the last 10 years, there were many such cases reported. Mike suspected the number was far higher than the number reported, with people just vanishing without a trace and no official report being made. The boat's hull made a dull thud as it bounced up against the side of the wooden dock, bringing Mike out of his inner dialogue. Mike jumped up on the platform and tied their boat in a knot solid enough to hold the boat, but easy enough to remove if they found themselves in need of making a hasty escape from the town. Bill jumped in the crippled boat and started bailing water. Well, looks like it was just swamped, no real damage. Let's get the boat bailed out and we can get out of here. The battery is water resistant, but not waterproof. It could still have enough juice to run the bilge. Let's leave that for now. I want to find out what happened to Megan and Kyle. I'd like to bring them back with us if they are holed up in town somewhere. Bill, huffing and puffing from the exertion of bailing out the boat, panted, "Just give me 1 sec." After a minute, Bill flipped a switch and the electric whir of the bilge pump pierced the afternoon quiet. Bill grunted in approval. Mike found himself reassured at the sounds of the water being shot out the side of the boat. "You're a wizard on the water. Now let's see if we can find our missing guests." Bill stepped up onto the dock. "I think we just got lucky that battery had enough juice to work the pump. Let's hope our luck holds." Bill pointed towards the lights of town. "Ever actually visited Rehopoke?" "Nope. You? Bill frowned. Always been a peculiar place. Really insular people. It got worse after the new pastor took over. I think the name is Swenson? Once many years ago, I came over here for a funeral. An old friend of mine passed away who'd moved to Rehopoke to live with his family. He only lived about 6 years after moving here. The townspeople treated me nice enough, but kind of weird at the same time. Mike walked down the dock toward shore. What made it weird? You know how you go to places like funerals and weddings and people talk, kids will play outside, people cry, that kind of thing. He let the rhetorical question sink in before continuing. Well, no one did that. As a matter of fact, everything seemed staged, and no one talked to me. The only person to talk to me was my friend's sister, and she limited the conversation to his last days. There was this man who kept following us around. I tried to shake him, but it only brought him closer. Mike laughed nervously. Well, everyone grieves in their own way. Bill said, No, Mike, no one grieves like that. Reminded me of the stories I'd heard of North Korea or something. Everything felt rehearsed by an unseen central authority. Everyone acted exactly as expected. At one point I asked someone a question and they struggled for an answer, like they had no idea what preordained reply was appropriate, like I'd gone off script or something. Way to add to the creep factor, Bill. Bill nodded his head. Good. I'm glad you get it. That means you understand what I'm driving at. We need to tread carefully. These people aren't normal. Not by a long shot. Going into town could be the last decision we ever make. Are you sure you want to do this? Not too late to turn back now, you know. Bill, I can't describe it. I just have to find these two. Aside from that, how bad can it be? There are two of us, and if we go slow and stay quiet, we might be able to get in, find them, and get out. No muss, no fuss. Although it was the middle of the afternoon, the streets lay deserted, the rainy day evidently driving everyone inside. From the parking lot of the boat launch, several buildings loomed up a rise about a half a mile away. The town of Rehopoke once abutted the lake. It was rebuilt farther away after repeated flooding. One of the state offices responsible for waterways management had given them money to create an enhanced wetland to accommodate additional spillways for water when the weather turned wet. The majority of the buildings sat at a natural crest at the top of the small hill. The remains of the old town sat rotting in the woods just off the boat ramps access road. Bill shrugged his shoulders in a clear gesture of disapproval. Mike got the impression Bill's angst ran deeper than he was letting on. The storm, while intense, worked itself out and had moved out of the area. The trees sat oddly quiet, as if the birds themselves remained under a celestial gag order. Wind, which had whipped so furiously earlier, died down to a light breeze. Gray skies overhead pressed the sky toward an early twilight. Mike wondered to himself if it was better to wait it out until nightfall before poking around in the town. Yet snooping around at night would be hard to explain, should they be caught. Desperate to break the uncomfortable silence, Mike asked, So, Bill, how long have you worked at the resort? Bill thought about it for a few seconds. Let me see, I started about 3 years before you got here. I worked the front desk for a couple of years and then became head maintenance man, chief bottle washer, and master of all the rental gear. You still like it? Bill harumphed, his voice deepening. Mike, these are the kinds of conversations you have with someone before you fire them. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Rather, eliminated a superfluous position in a matrixed organization. I believe that's what you people call it. Mike laughed. You're funny. No, Bill. As far as I'm concerned, you can stay at the resort until the buildings fall down. I just hate the silence. This place is creepy enough. It earned its reputation. You know about the murders. Disappearances. But not much about the good people of Rehopoke. I've been here long enough to know a little about them. The place is more like a cult compound than a town. The whole shebang is run by Reverend Donnie Swenson. He's the head honcho of everything around here. He's in charge of the police, fire department, garbage, even controls the local school board. Chief bottle washer too, Mike asked. Bill chuckled. You're catching on. Yep. If it happens in Rehopoke, it's because he had a hand in it. Most of the people around here are afraid of him. He commands them to come to church, pay taxes, and personally approves of everything, even to the point where marriages are reportedly arranged and all pregnancies must be approved. That's right, you can't even have a baby in Rehopoke without his permission. Creepy, Mike said. And how do you know all this? About 8 years ago, before you bought your share of the resort, a 12-year-old boy found his way into the hideaway. Kid was confused, half-starved, clothes all torn, filthy from head to toe, like he'd spent a few days in the woods. Of course, we fed the kid, clothed him. The boy stayed in one of the rooms to recuperate. Some staff volunteered to keep an eye on him. Mike and Bill had eclipsed half the distance between the pier and the town's main street. The idea of a child of 12 stumbling through these deep woods surrounding them, desperately seeking help, sent ice through his veins. His thoughts flashed back to Kelly. So what happened to him? Well, we got him talking. His name was Ethan Slater. Mother and father were killed by someone or something. When we asked for a description, he froze up on us. Whatever it was, it terrified him. He described it as a demon or a ghost. We asked Ethan how he managed to escape. He told us that he'd run out the back door of the church and got lost in the woods. He followed the lake until he showed up here. You should have seen that boy plead with us not to let them take him back to the town. Mike kicked a branch off the road and into the ditch. What happened to him? Bill grimaced. We did the only thing we could do. Legally, we had to call the police, and they sent an officer from Rehopoke. Mike interrupted him, but that's exactly what you should have done in that situation. They came with papers and a magistrate's order to take him into custody. I had no choice. About a week later, I called the police station in Rehopoke to find out what happened to the kid. The guy I talked to said no one had heard of an Ethan Slater. No family with that last name ever lived there. Bill fell silent. Mike was afraid of his next question, but felt compelled to ask. So I'm guessing you don't believe their version of the story? They killed that boy, Mike. As I live and breathe, I know in my heart they killed Ethan. We should have protected him, and we failed. If you'd only seen the terror in that boy's eyes when the police took him away, then you'd think twice about what we're doing. And that is the end of Chapter 11. We're 17 minutes into it, so I am going to stop it there. I want to thank you very much for joining me. If you enjoyed this chapter of Rehopoke, if you enjoy my readings of Rehopoke, please take the time to click the like buttons so that every time a new video comes out, you can catch me there. If you are interested in the story and you would like to buy a copy, you can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Nook, a bunch of other places for electronic versions. You can also get one signed from me through Square. I'll sign it and send it off to you. You can also, if you're interested, like me on Facebook. I do podcasting as well. You can check me out on my podcast and find out more about what's going on in the life of Brian the Writer. Thank you very much. Everybody stay safe. Have a great day.